Welcome, everyone. I'm Brent Boyer. I'm the Director of Disability Services at Sonoma State University. And obviously, we'd rather be doing this in person and just giving you a chance to visit our beautiful campus and just meet individually with us. But these are challenging times, and safety is our #1 priority. So we're doing the best we can to reach out and reach out to you and meet with you remotely. But hopefully this time will end soon, and we can get together and meet individually. We have a very supportive president in President Sakaki and Vice President Dr. Sawyer. So we're a campus that's very supportive to students, and students are the #1 priority, and a campus that really works together closely and collaborates and really has the students' interest in mind. And so we've been transitioning to this remote education here for just over a month, and just working really collaboratively with faculty and staff to make this a smooth transition for our students. Myself as director, I've been at Sonoma State for almost 19 years. It'll be 19 years in July, and a majority of that time has been working as the director of the office. And I'm happy to have Maggie McLeod co-hosting today, and I'll give Maggie a chance to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie McLeod. I'm one of the disability management advisors with DSS, and I have been at Sonoma State for 6 years now. This is my 6th year. And prior to that, I worked in a similar office at Fresno State. So I've been working with this population for many years, and I look forward to meeting all of you this coming semester.
Thanks, Maggie. So I'm going to be doing a PowerPoint presentation, and then you have the opportunity, if you have questions that come up, there's a chat function in there, and Maggie's going to be monitoring those questions. So I'm going to share my screen with you all. And first, I'd like to do just a poll to see who's out in our audience. So I'm gonna do that. So I'm going to launch that. I just want to kind of get a sense of who's participating in there, why you're interested in Sonoma State. So I'll launch that, and you can go ahead and fill that out. Has everyone had a chance to do that? I can and then kind of share the results. It's kind of interesting to see who's out there in the audience. So looking at who the students are. So 9 of you are first-year students or freshmen, 10 transfers, and a couple support individuals or family. Let's see. And why you're interested in attending SSU. So these are, you could indicate multiple reasons. So Dr. Sawyer, looks like, Dr. Sakaki, President Sakaki, it looks like your major, the size of the campus. That's looks like the most popular reason. The Disability Services Office, that's good. Campus housing, the class size of classes, and then the setting. So great, it's good to see. Okay. you for doing that. Okay, so today I want to just give an overview of our staff, let you know what the purpose of our office is on campus, the goals, what we have in mind for our students, what we'd like to see them achieve, some comparisons between high school and college disability services. A lot of our people in the audience are already from the community colleges, so you're somewhat familiar with that already. And then how students can access our office, and then the support services available on campus. Okay, so this is our staff, myself as director, and you've met Maggie just recently there. So our advisors, our disability management advisors, these are the individuals, including myself, that will meet with you as students individually. We're gonna look at what accommodations would be appropriate. And then what's unique about our office is that we also do academic advising. So as a student, you can get academic advising with us, as well as your major advisor, or if you're undeclared, you can meet with someone in the advising center. But we feel that really doing academic advising is really essential to providing services, because we're looking at what kinds of things might be barriers for you in your education, in your educational pursuits, but also helping you select classes that are going to be a good balance for you. So that's, I think, a real advantage of what we do is in academic advising, as well as providing the accommodations for the classroom. And then we also are looking at technology. We want to incorporate technology as much as possible. So we have Noelia Franzen is our accessibility coordinator, and Stephanie Graham is our accessibility specialist. So those individuals would be assisting in creating accessible documents, doing captioning for videos, any kind of technology that might be helpful in the classroom. And then Joanne Jaggers is our administrative support coordinator, and she's the one you would get to know in our office, and just helping you feel welcome, would help with coordinating exams in the class, or exams in our office as well. So the purpose of DSS, Disability Services, is to ensure equal access to students with disabilities by providing appropriate accommodations and specialized support services. And then we also provide guidance to faculty and staff, again, to assure that it's really seamless across the campus and in the classes, to ensure that you are getting those accommodations that are going to help you be successful. So the goals for our students is we want you to really become strong self-advocates. We feel that education is really just your first step towards employment. So we want to help you look at really kind of what your strengths and limitations are, what you want to do afterwards, what kind of work do you want to do, and start to think about potential majors and vocational goals if you haven't already decided what you want to do in the way of employment, and really to help you work to your highest potential. So in doing so, we want to make sure that you're aware of all the different kinds of campus resources to help you succeed, but also some of the community resources. We work closely with a state agency called the Department of Rehabilitation, and their goal is to help individuals with disabilities obtain employment. So we work closely with them, and they are an organization that could help you once you then graduate from school and then into the employment setting, and potentially could also assist in paying for education. So Maggie, oftentimes, she's our primary contact with the Department of Rehab, and having them actually come on campus and get our students set up with that organization. So it's a great resource. So just a brief overview of the disability laws. I don't want to get into this too much, but it really helps to explain kind of what's different between high school and college disability services. So coming out of the high school, the K through 12 individuals are under IDEA, you've probably heard of that in the development of IEPs and 504 plans. And so that's really at the K through 12 level. And then the Section 504 of the Rehab Act also is part of the K through 12. But as you get into college, we're only under 504 and the ADA. So it's a little bit different between those laws, and I'll explain kind of what that means here. So in high school, the IDA, everyone's entitled to a free and public education. So the schools are mandated to identify individuals with disabilities and then develop plans, IEPs or 504 plans. And that really drives all the services that individuals receive in high school. In college, again, it's the 504 or ADA, so it's all about equal access and not discriminating because of disability. So in college, you won't see those formal plans or IEPs. It's really just the interaction between our office, the students, and the faculty, and ensuring that accommodations are occurring in the classroom. But there aren't those formal plans any longer, and kind of assessing and evaluate your progress towards meeting objectives in those plans. So how that impacts the student is we have to look at who's responsible for reaching out and seeking services. And so again, the high schools, they're mandated to identify those individuals, and then the parents or the students are ones who initiate those services. And depending on the student, it really depends on how involved they are in those educational plans. In college, the students have to be the ones who reach out and request services from the offices at the different campuses. And so students don't have to disclose that they have a disability, but they do need to do that in order to receive services in college. And our office is the office identified on campus that any request for accommodations would go through our office. So anyone seeking accommodations would go through us. And so if we get documentation through the mail or through faxes, and the parents are sending that, we're going to respond directly to the student. So the students, you should be checking your email, because we're going to be responding back to you to what the next steps would be. So be sure to be monitoring your SSU email. Okay. And then related to disability documentation. So again, in high school, you have the IEPs or 504 plans. In college, students can present the IEPs or 504 plans, but generally those by itself are not sufficient to document the presence of some kind of a disability. So we really are looking at what kinds of documentation led to that IEP or 504 plan. So schools, universities set different kinds of standards about what kind of documentation is required. So if you had an IEP or a 504 because of a learning disability, then it should be the learning disability testing that led to that diagnosis of a learning disability. And then for other conditions like ADD, ADHD, psychological, medical kinds of documentation, we have forms on our website, and I can show you where that's located. Those conditions should be documented by the professional who that's their expertise. So it would be like a medical doctor or psychologist or psychiatrist. Maggie, you want to jump in if there's any questions we want to address?
There aren't any questions so far, other than asking if there's paperwork to submit, how and where do individuals submit that? Okay. So
we'll get to that in just a moment. Okay, then back to documentation. So again, the high schools, someone coming from the high school, they again were mandated to do all those kinds of evaluations and testing, and so hopefully those were done at the high school level. Once you leave high school, again, the colleges aren't required to identify someone with a condition. So we don't do evaluation. So it's up to the student to provide that kind of documentation from the specialist. So again, either something that that was done in high school, or again, I'll point you to how you can document other conditions on our website. What kind of documentation would be required. And then related to accommodations, in high school, again, those IEPs or 504 plans identified those goals and objectives and what kinds of things would be implemented to help you achieve those goals and objectives. In college, the accommodations are based on the documentation that was provided to us. So we're looking at, how are you impacted by that specific condition? And then the accommodations are going to match up with those limitations that you might have. So examples of accommodations might be more time for a test. It might be note-taking assistance. It might be sign language interpreters. It might be, converting instructional materials into different formats that are more, they're accessible to you. So again, related to the ADA, we have to guarantee access, but not necessarily success. So those accommodations are going to be help you with the limitations that you have, but they don't require, or they don't change what the requirements are for the course. So it might be more time, but generally it's not more time on an exam or more time on an assignment or more days to complete an assignment, but is what kinds of accommodations can be done to help you get that assignment done or the test done within those time frames. Okay, and then how the accommodations work. What we do is we meet individually with students, and we will go over the information that you submit. We have our student intake form, which I'll show you about, tell you about, and then the documentation. So we look at what kind of limitations that you have, and then how those might be barriers to your classes, and what kind of accommodations would be necessary to help you. So we would meet with you individually. We would look over your classes with you, and class by class, we would develop an accommodation letter that you'll present to your faculty to let them know exactly what accommodations you need for each of those classes. And then we provide that letter to you, and then you submit that accommodation letter to your instructor. So again, we're trying to really teach that independence. So we're coaching you and providing that letter so you present that to your faculty. And we have a great relationship with faculty. They're not going to question those accommodations. They just really want to know what accommodations you need for those classes. So that's where you would present that letter to them so they know what accommodations to provide. So if you were to get more time on a test, maybe taking the test in a quieter area, generally that happens. Students would come to our office and take that exam. So the faculty would know that that student's going to take the class, that exam in our office with more time, and they would send that exam over to our office, and then we would administer that exam. So different kinds of services. Again, services and accommodations are really individualized. So it comes back to your documentation, how you're impacted by your condition. And so it's going to vary from one student to the next. But generally, accommodations and services might include what we call disability management advising, and that would be that academic advising that we provide in conjunction with determining what accommodations are going to be helpful for your classes. Test-taking accommodations are also very common, so it might be more time on a test, it might be taking the test in a quieter area, it might be maybe using a computer on the exam, it might be using assistive technology on the exam. So anything related to test taking, we can make accommodations there. And then with note taking, so if someone's affected by the ability to take notes while also listening in class, there's different note taking strategies we can use, either having access to another student's notes. And we also, again, are trying to use technology as much as possible. So we have smart pins that we can check out. So they're recording the lecture and then also taking a picture of the notes that you're taking. So then you can go back in time and on your paper, the specialized paper, you can put your pin down and it will recall what was said at that time in the class. So you can actually hear the professor talking, so you can reference the notes that you were taking at that time. So it's a smart pen. And then we're piloting a program called Otter AI. So Otter like the animal, .ai for artificial intelligence. And that is an app that you can download on your phone. So it records the lecture and then also creates a transcript. So again, you can have the recording as well as a written transcript. So it's another great note-taking strategy. And then individuals, maybe with hearing impairments, we can caption media. So any videos and things that are shown in class, you can also see the media that or the captions that are put in there. And then interpreting services, and then assistive technology and alternate media. So that would be anyone with a print-related disability. So it could be visual or a learning disability. We can turn the text into electronic formats and use technology. We use a program called Read and Write, and that program will read the text out loud to you so you can hear it as well as see it. And then there's all kinds of strategies for note-taking and highlighting and bookmarking. So Read and Write is a great tool that we offer to actually every student on campus. It's a free download to any student on campus, student, faculty, and staff. Other support that's available on campus, there's a program called United for Success. That's a federal grant. They work with students who are low income, first generation, or a student registered with our office. And you only have to meet one of those 3 criteria. So being registered with us qualifies you for that program. And they have a writing specialist. Someone can help with writing an assignment, a math specialist, someone that helps with time management. So that's a great resource. Our students really enjoy working with those professionals in that office. And then there's a Learning Academic Resource Center, or LARC, and they have that's where the tutorial center is. There's a writing center, extra tutoring for different classes. There's advising and career. There's counseling and psychological services, the writing center, and then there's a 24-hour lab. And within that lab, we have an assistive tech lab. You can actually go in there after hours and use different kinds of technology and have a quieter area to work on the computers. So this is kind of what you're looking for, is how to get started with our office. So step 1 would be providing documentation. So again, that might be the learning disability assessment. It might be medical records. It might be using some of the forms on our webpage, and I'll direct you to those in a moment. And again, the IEP and 504, those can be helpful, but if you can also provide the assessment that generated that IEP or 504 plan, so we can actually see the assessment. So step 1 is the documentation. Step 2 is our intake form. So it's kind of a history form. Just gives us some general information about yourself, the impact that you feel that that's affecting you in class. Maybe history of accommodations you've had, what's been helpful in the past. So again, we want to know what kinds of things have been helpful, what kinds of accommodations that you're seeking. And that intake form can be completed online. That'll go directly to our online, that'll go to us by email to our office. You can deliver them by fax currently, or by mail. Currently, the campus is closed for in-person delivery, so we would not be doing that at this time. So either mail or fax at this time. And then the third step is once we get that documentation, we would review that information, and then we would reach out to you to set up what we call your intake appointment. And that's where we would go over all that information, the documentation, the intake form, and then talk about what accommodations would be helpful to you. It's most beneficial if we do that after you've attended orientation. That way you already have your classes, and we can talk about accommodations and how that will relate to those specific classes. So transfers have recently gone through orientation, so we could start meeting with individuals really anytime once you've turned in your documentation. We're doing meetings right now through Zoom, so we would contact you and set up a Zoom appointment. So be checking your email, because once we get that information, we'll be in contact with you about what the next steps would be. Any questions, Maggie?
Yeah, we've got a few questions. So for students who have temporary disabilities, how do they get connected?
Same kind of situation. They would do you would do that intake form, and then let's see. You can do actually we have a on our webpage we have a form for temporary conditions, and we'll go to that page so we can see the documentation. But we have a form. So if it were whatever it might be, you would just get an individual that would document what that condition is, and then we would provide accommodations based on the length that's needed for that temporary condition. But definitely we could accommodate temporary disability.
Okay. Yeah, we have a couple more questions here. For a transfer student, how to get started. I know that was covered a little bit. The best way is to get a copy of your documentation from your community college to be sent to DSS at SSU so that we can review that documentation, and then we get back to you via email. There's a question if we have support groups.
Okay. Let me go back to the transfer one a little bit too. We have found that if you request to get those records yourself, and they send them to you rather than us, because they'll give you more of your records. They won't give us what they call third-party documentation. So if you got your records from your medical doctor, they oftentimes won't give us those records because they belong to someone else, or they were given to them by someone else. So if you sign consent with your current community college to get the records given to you, then you could provide those records to us. And then related to support groups, we don't currently have support groups. Counseling and Psychological Services does have a number of support groups, and we do have one club, so students can start clubs. We have an autism club, and so we do have one club related to autism, but not any others that I'm aware of. Are you, Maggie?
That's the only club we have currently, but again, as you know, Brent mentioned, students can start clubs. They just need to have 5 members who are willing to be officers and club members to get a club started.
Okay. Then we're towards the end of our time here. This is just a brief summary. So again, students are the ones who need to come forward and identify that they want to seek services. Getting documentation that meets our standards, and then we would talk with you about different kinds of accommodations, what would be appropriate, and to ensure that we have, that we're providing equal access. Sometimes with first-year students, I just want to emphasize the importance of starting with our office, and sometimes students want to try things on their own and see how things go, and determine whether or not they need accommodation services. And our only hesitation about proceeding in that manner is if you don't get started with us and you don't get the accommodations that you would really help you, like more time on a test, and then you have that exam and you don't do as well as you could have if you would have had more time, then you're kind of stuck with that particular score for that exam. You can't go back and retake that exam. You can get accommodations once you come back and meet with us and become eligible and have those accommodations. But if you didn't do very well on that exam, then you're kind of stuck, and it puts you in a hole. And so we don't want to see that. We want to really make sure that you have everything that you need to work to your highest potential. So we really emphasize and encourage you to get started with us right away, and not kind of wait and see if you need it or not. So that's just a plug for really, starting with us from day one. And then with the coronavirus, it's just, these are some good resources. Obviously, we're doing everything remotely. You'll just want to keep in contact with the campus to determine how we're proceeding for the fall semester. Right now, summer classes are online, but no decision has been made yet about fall semester classes. But those accommodations and those, testing accommodations and things like that, that has just made itself, we're continuing that in the remote environment. So we are working closely with faculty to ensure that students are still getting those same accommodations, only in a remote environment. So it's obviously a little different and not ideal. We'd rather have everyone on campus and be able to attend to individuals on a one-to-one basis, but we just don't know at this point, how things are going to be going into the fall. So, keep in contact about how the campus is proceeding by these resources, and you can access these from our homepage of the campus. And let me let me show you our web page. So this is our web page. We also have updates on the COVID-19, what's happening there as well. And then related to registering for services, so this is our page here. If you click on the register for services, it takes you.
I still see the PowerPoint. I'm not seeing your website.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. So let me go back to our page here. So this is our page here. We also have information about the COVID-19. We refer people back to the homepage, which has the most up-to-date information, but also just how we're operating during this time. So you can check that out as well. And then we have students who are using alternate media, so we're changing that media into separate accessible formats. This is how students request that online after they're eligible for that accommodation. And then related to documentation, this is how to register for services. So it kind of goes through what we just talked about for the process, where to send the information, and then these are different kinds of conditions and what kind of documentation you might need for those conditions. So you can either go from right here, or if you go to the forms section. So then there's for ADD, ADHD, this is the verification form for that. So your medical professional is the one who is completing this form. And then they can either return it to you or they can send it directly to our office. We have learning disability guidelines. These are the guidelines that are through the CSUs that tells you about what kinds of testing should be done and what a learning disability assessment should look like. This is the medical verification form. So again, a medical professional, any medical conditions, this is the form that they would fill out. So if you have any questions about what form it would be, just be sure to let us know and we can help you with that. And then the individual that mentioned the temporary condition, so this would be the temporary disability accommodation request form. Any other questions, Maggie?
No, I think we've covered everything. I did put in the chat box for everyone the disability.services@Sonoma email, where you're welcome to contact DSS if you have specific questions, and a staff member will get back to you fairly quickly. I know everybody has lots of unique situations and everything we do is individualized, so we're here to assist you on a case-by-case basis. One question is, can intake appointments take place on a Saturday? Just got that.
We'd have to, generally not. Our hours are Monday through Friday. We're doing them through Zoom, so we would have to see if there's a unique situation where, you know, we would talk with you to see if that's a possibility. But generally our hours are Monday 8 to 5.
And the next question is, where can we get the recording of this video?
We'd have to check. I'm not sure if that's available or not.
And then one more question is, who is the best person to contact about deciding which are the best forms for an individual?
You can either call our office or email, and then we'll get back to you next week about that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Anything else?
That's everything.
All right. Well, thanks for everyone for participating, and good luck with the rest of your semester at either your high school and college. And we look forward to seeing you in the fall.
Enjoy Seawolf Decision Day. Bye.
Thank you.